You had to draft something out of nothing, then engage brain in order to refine it, make it feel more human, adapt it to your own tone of voice, add additional details, and then put it back into the Gen AI in order to get it to validate it. These models take huge amounts of energy to run. Like Eric Schmidt, the ex-CEO of Google, was talking about. They think he needs another 90 gigawatts of power in the US in the next few years. And that's like 90 nuclear power stations, and they're currently building 0.
There are always jobs on your to-do list that are really boring, really difficult jobs. If you look at that and you think, okay, how can AI help me with that? And read some guides about prompting, read some guides about tooling, and then see if you can make a start with it. And I think as many organizations, or all organizations, need to do, you need to adopt the new tooling, the new processes, new ways of working in order to increase your productivity.
Mohara is a global venture studio transforming bold startup ideas into world-class digital products. Since 2015, they've built over 50 products, invested in 30 plus startups, and partnered with brands like Nike, Dell, Disney, and Ford. Ben, co-founder and co-CEO, leads Mohara's production arm, building innovative products with a focus on efficiency, scalability, and delivery quality. Nick, Chief Technology Officer, holds a first-class degree in physics from Oxford and drives technical strategy and engineering execution across Mohara's global portfolio. Guys, welcome to Trampoline's podcast.
Thanks so much
for having us.
Thanks for being here. So yeah, like we start every episode, just tell me a little bit about yourselves, and it's Mohara.
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing that right? So tell me a little bit about Mohara and what you guys do.
Shall I start? So I started my career sort of 20 odd years ago, 24 or 5 years ago, in consulting. I used to work for a big firm called EY, and then I moved around within the firm and different countries and things. Basically, just was never quite happy anywhere, and not quite brave enough to leave. And then I did an MBA, and out of that MBA, I, instead of kind of getting what my dad would have called a proper job, I started a startup. And I was pretty unqualified for doing it, I have to say. I always say there's 3 things in building a business, like build it, sell it, and finance it. And I had no idea how to build it. I didn't have any idea how to sell what we were building, and a small idea about how to get it financed. But it was an online gifts marketplace, a software product. And so I had this idea. I'd taken it to one agency and we'd fallen out. And then I took it to this guy who was setting up an offshore agency in Bangkok. And we met in a pub in Brighton, had beers whilst I took him through my PowerPoint slides. And I became his first customer. Fast forward a few years, and that person was Rich, my co-founder and co-CEO of Mohara. And my startup, wasn't working, unsurprisingly, in retrospect. But we had more and more people coming to us who were looking to build innovative product, early stage product, but were not from technical backgrounds or not part of the network and the community that, they always go and start with the same kind of people. And they were like, how did you guys do it? How did you guys kind of get over the barrier of, I'm not sure how to describe what I need to an outsourced team. I don't want to give it to my mate who's doing it in the evening, because how do I know he's ever going to get it finished? And Rich had the idea of like, let's focus a business around building innovative product, but also building for the kinds of people who don't know how to describe how to do what they want. They know why it's there. They know that kind of reason why it exists. Yeah. They don't know how to do it. And so often those kinds of people would say to organizations, build me an app that does this, and this, and this. Whereas actually the non-technical person, the non-product person is not always the best person to describe exactly how that product should work. Just tell the vision of it. Yeah. Fast forward a few years, we've grown a bit, changed a bit, professionalized a bit, and then brought in some great people like Nick.
Well, lovely segue, thank you. So I'm Nick, I'm the CTO at Mohara. So I was originally trained as a physicist, but I knew I'd never wanted to become an academic. So I joined a consultancy called Quick Release. We were specialists in data management. We worked a lot with businesses that engineer complex products. So think planes, trains, and automobiles. So we went into those businesses to help get their data right and keep it right throughout developing the products. And so we grew that from 9 to 350 people. And it was at that business I met Ben. And, I think a lot of the time while I was working there, I was trying to bring technology to the problems that we were trying to solve. I joke, my dad taught me to code before he taught me how to ride a bike. And so like using technology to solve problems has always been really kind of key to my heart. And then, moving on from there, I joined Mohara as CTO. And so I'm now responsible for heading up our engineering teams, pioneering a lot of the AI work we've been doing, and working with a lot of our startup customers.
Okay. So like Mohara, I was reading was it helps startups create digital products. Is that right? Or is it a little bit more?
So the products we build are innovative products that we can scale. So there are certain different groups of customers of ours that want those innovative products. One group is people starting new businesses, because obviously if you're starting a new business and you're starting in a tech business that's trying to solve a problem, then you're going to need an innovative product. Another group of customers are scaling businesses who have got investment and what have you, and they're looking to add capable product teams that help them build innovative parts of their entire product suite. So they're building stuff and they want to go a lot faster. Another group that we work with are SMEs, small and medium businesses that have an established position in the market but don't have a lot of sort of innovation capability in-house, but then there's always opportunities to maximize. And we also work with what are called venture studios. So venture studios are basically factories for building new businesses, and therefore by definition what they end up doing is build innovative product in those new businesses that they're working with. But through the venture studios, we've worked with some of the biggest companies in the world, like Hitachi or Diageo and people like that. So it's very much not just for startups, but anybody who's in that kind of rough and ready world of trying to build something new, something fresh in a way that's not been done before, capture a market.
I think like whether you have a dream, a PowerPoint, a POC, an MVP, or you're looking to like innovate from something you already have, we can probably help you move to that kind of next stage.
And how do you kind of filter? So if someone comes to you and says, we don't want help with this, are you selective with who you help, or is it more you figure out?
So we have two models. One model, which we came up with very early on, was our investment model. And so that venture side of our business, we will not completely remove the fees, but reduce the fees and charge the cost rate for the work that we're doing, and then take some equity in the business through sweat equity, it's called. And for those types of businesses, we have a full investment criteria process. We have a limit about the amount we can do on a year-by-year basis, because although it's not cash, it's cash effective. So there is a filter there where we say, look, we can work with you. We don't want to work with you in this way because it's too risky for us, etc. On the kind of services side of the business, rather than the kind of the pure investment side, our mindset and our attitude is the same. How do we help build businesses that can last and that can scale? But if somebody says, I really want to work with you guys, and here's the money, we will work with anybody. The situations where we don't get to work with people on that side of the business is if they're treating us like people who just take orders and like here's a defined list of things we want you to do, go and build that, because that's not really playing to the strengths that we have. Our strength, I always use the analogy of a doctor and a patient. So a patient goes to the doctor and says, hey, I've got this problem. Do you know why I've got this problem? I want you, and the doctor will then say how to solve it, whether it's a surgery or physiotherapy or medicine or what have you. And sometimes they'll solve it for themselves, they'll do it themselves, or sometimes they'll refer them elsewhere. Whereas you have a waiter and a diner, in a waiter and a diner, you go in and the diner says, I want that. And the waiter goes away and gets the order and brings it back. And our real strength because we built so many early stage products, innovative products, is somebody coming to us and going, okay, I really want to launch this new coffee product, this new vending machine product. I really want to drive loyalty. How can we do that? And then we sit down in a room and say, okay, we can do it like this, we can do it like this, and these are the technical limitations, and thinking through things like that. So if somebody's just coming in and saying, I want you to compete with these other 5 firms, I want to pick the cheapest price against this fixed kind of defined scope, right? It's not really for us.
And I was reading up that you focus mainly on last mile AI. Is that right? Is that the main? What is last mile AI for someone who doesn't?
If you think about, and Nick will be able to go in a lot more detail about this, it's not the only focus on that.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing, everybody, I think everybody's heard of ChatGPT by now, but what we're seeing is a lot of companies, businesses we work with, want us to incorporate generative AI in their solutions. And also internally, as an organization, I think as many organizations or all organizations need to do, you need to adopt the new toolings, the new processes, the new ways of working in order to increase your productivity. So by getting really good at implementing some of the Gen AI processes, tools, and technologies, we can then help accelerate companies. But as to what last mile AI means...
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is there's 3 main layers that you need in order to deliver something in AI. There's the hardware, the silicon, the GPUs. There's the models, so the actual things that companies like OpenAI, like the big players like Google and Microsoft are building. And then there's the applications and how you actually use all that technology on a particular challenge. And last mile AI very much sits in that last layer. Like, we're not building hardware, we're not raising our own models, we're actually using all that technology to solve real challenges. And so in kind of similar analogy to the last mile transportation, it's like, how do you take all this good stuff and really apply it in a way that's kind of innovative, that allows you to iterate really quickly and learn, and that helps you ride the wave as this AI beast is changing, week by week, how you do that.
Yeah. And, there's mixed emotions about AI. Some people, fear it, they're going to take over, they're going to make us lose our jobs. Like, what would you say to them, individuals who have a negative kind of outlook on AI?
It's very difficult. I think I don't see there's any reason why theoretically we won't be able to build machines that can think as well as a human. But that's quite a way off. But I think it's good that people are already considering, like, how do we build the social aspects, the legislative aspects, the technological aspects that are going to allow us to operate in that society. So I think for now, for like practical advice for people, I think it's about starting to dip your toe into that water, getting used to using AI tools, finding opportunities to bring it to your own workflows, to solve your own problems, so that you're kind of ready for the world as it starts to evolve and we see more and more of AI use. And I think that model of kind of humans working hand in hand with machines is going to become the dominant one for a good number of years now. And we always need to keep that human in the loop. It's so important that we are still in control of what's happening, and we're still the ones validating the outputs. And, the worst thing you can do is just fire something into ChatGPT and then blindly copy and paste it into an email or into your system or something else. Like, you still have to engage your brain in that process. And we spend a lot of time in Mohara as well, helping upskill our teams on how to best use AI. Like, within our kind of software development technology space, we're primed for disruption from this. And so, we're trying to help our teams really understand how to get the most from it, how to understand it, but how to make sure they're still in the driving seat and that they're getting the best from it. Yeah.
And with AI now, like, a lot of businesses will use AI on their branding, right? And if you don't, you'll see, you're looked at as like someone who's not really, innovating. But for small, medium enterprises, how could they adopt AI from like a beginning point, and not obviously on the more technical side, but how could they start adopting it in their business?
I think for small and medium businesses, it's actually easier than larger businesses, because you don't have as many sort of barriers to buying some of these services that bigger businesses have. And that's one of the advantages about being of that size. You can be a lot more nimble and a lot more agile in terms of how you adopt it and where you adopt it. And I think one of the key things is thinking about, firstly, make sure you just do it, do something, find something. And then one of the sort of mental frameworks that I always talk about is there are always jobs on your to-do list that are really boring, really difficult jobs.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I, and it's the one that on your to-do list, if you're a small business or a medium-sized business or like we are, that kind of rolls from week to week and month to month. If you look at that, you think, okay, how can AI help me with that? And, read some guides about prompting, read some guides about tooling, and then see if you can make a start with it. And there are often things like policies or training manuals or customer support tasks or dealing with your kind of tax affairs or what have you. And it's not about getting the perfect answer. It's about helping you take that boring but difficult problem that rolls week to week and then breaking it down in such a way that you get a start and that you then can start building on that yourself. As Nick was saying, one of the biggest mistakes that you can make is just dump something into the LLM and then take, without thinking about it, the extract. But they're very good if you're stuck at getting a starting point and then using that to build on. So if you've got a problem that's been kind of sitting there for ages, actually think, could I tackle this with AI? And it's, in my case, generally like writing something like a policy document.
Yeah, I mean, like large language models, which are like the poster child, let's say, of the Gen AI movement at the moment. Like they're very good at natural language. So anything where you're trying to create some content, and Beck gave some great examples there, that's a really good place to start, and to be able to draft something out of nothing, then engage brain in order to refine it, make it feel more human, adapt it to your own tone of voice, add additional details, and then put it back into the Gen AI in order to get it to validate it. And that's more than just like checking for spelling mistakes. You can do really smart things like, how might a Gen Z interpret this particular piece of content?
Yeah.
And getting it to kind of adopt those different personas for you is a good way to get in. But I think, again, on barriers to entry, like nowadays there are free tiers on so many of these tools. So sign up for ChatGPT, try out Claude, try out Gemini. And I think that kind of culture of experimentation and play is what's so great about the Gen AI. It is about trying stuff out. These are not tools where you put the same input and get the same output in. You need to test it out. You need to try different things to see how it comes.
I think on that one as well, one of the barriers that people often have is around the security and the safety of the tools. And actually that, is the LLM going to learn on my data concern? It is valid, and there have been ways that in order to be able to provide these tools for free, the kind of quid pro quo has been that they can then learn on your data. Yeah. But actually they all have entry level subscriptions that you can cancel after a month that range from between $20 to $50. So if you are concerned about data privacy and actually giving away kind of sensitive information, then making sure that you create an investment into this kind of thing. It's like, it isn't about just always going for the free. It isn't about doing it on the side of your desk. Like ring fence some time and ring fence a sort of project around it. Put some budget of manpower and cash behind it. And it doesn't have to be very much, and make sure that you actually kind of go into it.
Yeah. Many of these tools have privacy settings as well, where you can explicitly deny their ability to train on your data. But in the same way that you wouldn't copy and paste your private business data just anywhere on the internet, you need to obviously make sure that you read those policies.
And I remember there was a case where people were putting in, some questionable requests to AI, like how do I make certain things or do certain things, and then they had to send an update through to prevent AI from responding to those. What is what was that issue there? Like, do you remember what I'm referring to?
Yeah, so I mean, there are, from the security perspective as well, there's a whole new set of different security vectors that need to be considered. And so, there are some cases where people have been able to get around some of the protections that these large language models have put in place. And the large language models builders are learning from that and are releasing updates continually in order to put those things in place.
Yeah.
And maybe another concern from people's perspective around hallucinations. So this is where the large language model makes up an answer. And that's fundamentally tied to how these things work. Like behind the scenes, these are just trying to predict the next word. And they have very, very complex architectures behind it that are choosing which word to then predict for you. But that means you can end up situations where it is creating false facts. And there are things you can do to help protect that. Use the bigger, more established models. in your prompts talk around like, if you don't know the answer to this, tell me so. Those kind of like cues you can give the large language model in order to help it prevent making up facts. And then also like giving it as much context as possible. If you want it to answer in a certain way, tell it that. If you have some documentation that gives it style guides or gives it explicit rules or gives it context and information it needs to answer your question, give it that when you ask your question. So yeah, like hallucinations are a real thing and need to be considered. And again, it's a reason why you should always validate every output you get from a large language model.
Yeah. And I think I recently had a conversation with someone and they said ChatGPT is like a glamorous Google search bar. What would you say to that? How does it differ from, to someone who's got that kind of mindset?
Given Google has just released its own AI search, I think it probably thinks that is an understatement of what it wants to be. It is like completely fact that people more and more use LLMs as search engines rather than going to the traditional search engines. And it is a fascinating sort of clash of big tech about who will own eyeballs of the future on the internet and what the business models will be of the future. Like the ad-based business model that Google had for so long is under real pressure, because if I'm giving my content out for free that Google would then index, and the exchange of that is Google will then send me back traffic. If people are now just training their models on that rather than giving me anything back, like why would I generate that content? But back to your sort of question about, are people using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude instead of search? 100%. The risk, of course, is that it's great if it wants to give me a creative recipe for what I've got left over in my fridge. But if I want to know a specific actual fact around, a particular case law thing that has a very definite answer, there's a high risk of hallucination around that, and therefore it's not always a reliable source. The other thing is that obviously the models are trained on data up to a certain point, whereas if I want to know what the weather is like today or what the weather in Reykjavik is like today, it's not going to be a good thing to tell me, because the data might be 6 months old.
And that's where we're seeing kind of large language models and search being brought together as well. So you'll see often now, if you ask ChatGPT a question, it will do a web search in the background in order to then inform its context to then give you an answer.
Yeah, and I've noticed as well, if you Google search anything, the top thing would be an AI generated response. Where does it pull that information? Like how does it know to filter what source? And how does that get prioritized?
How does Google work, you mean?
In the sense that, so say if I ask ChatGPT something, where does it prioritize the information, the source of the information over another source, if that makes sense? What I'm trying to say.
So large language models are trained on vast corpuses of data that have been harvested off the public internet. And that's an interesting topic as well to talk about, as to whether we're getting to the point where we're running out of data in order to do that. And then, as again we talked about earlier, like it is trying to predict the next word based on that conglomeration of information. That ties into another kind of potential weakness of large language models, where they conflate popularity with fidelity. So just because in the source training set they had a lot of discussion in a particular area or a particular viewpoint, that can then be brought across in the response as something that's more truthful rather than just more popular. And again, goes back to that key message of like, still need to engage brain, still need to validate sources, still need to check the information.
Yeah. And again, for like small businesses, medium-sized businesses, what are the different areas they could adopt AI in? Because, for myself, I work in marketing. Like pretty much every day I use ChatGPT in some way. It just like streamlines the process, saves me so much time. I'll say, make me a schedule for a week's worth of posts. Then I'll just go in there and just reword it. I'll say, make it sound more like our brand. This is our target audience. I can filter it to sound like it's from our business, right? And then brand. So what other areas are there that AI can be kind of adopted in a small business in different areas?
I guess broadly we think of like two categories. There's AI to allow you to do things in your business faster and more efficiently. And then there's AI you can offer directly as a service to your customer. And obviously the first category is a lot less risk. It allows you to have a lot more control, and it's kind of where we advise people to start first. But I think, anything where you're generating copy, social media posts, FAQs, policies, contracts, like anything that has a lot of natural language involved, but translations even, it's a great use case for it. But it's I think, as Ben talked about earlier as well, like find a few just things that take you time at the moment that are difficult tasks for you to do, and see if an LLM can help you there, and try it out.
And what are like some of the key limitations that, working on AI, what you think is like currently like limiting AI to like kind of progress?
I mean, in the broadest sense, energy. Like these models take huge amounts of energy to run. Like Eric Schmidt, the ex-CEO of Google, was talking about, they think he needs another 90 gigawatts of power in the US in the next few years. And that's like 90 nuclear power stations, and they're currently building 0. Yeah. So like it really is a key constraint. And there's a lot of work going into how we make these things more efficient. But yeah, we do need a lot of power to get behind them and to generate the next generation. And as again I mentioned earlier, like we're getting to the point where we've used a lot of the publicly available data out there, and that's where again like people can get advantage by using the data they do have in their own businesses in order to provide that customization when they're prompting.
And then I was also reading that you use a framework called MoPro. What is that?
So MoPro is our sort of internal IP about how to build products. So when you do sort of any, well, asking ChatGPT, I was going to say Google searching, any research around product thinking, what you will often generally get is this idea that product thinking is all about the why and start with the user and the customer and what have you. And that's really true and really valid. And that's, the reason why a product should exist. But we talk about Simon Sinek's golden circle quite a lot. So you've got the why, the how, and the what. And so why a product exists is really important. If you don't have a why, you're not going to be in business for very long. But it isn't the only thing. And what we found was there was a lot of gaps, both in our own knowledge internally, but also very much with our customers, like how to build a product. And so somebody come in and say, this is why this product exists. And then you start trying to, scope it out. And then the project managers would be like, we need to go speak to the engineers. And the engineers would be like, okay, we need to do it like this in some kind of quite complex, probably over-engineered way. Whereas actually, thinking through what is the right way, the right how of that particular situation, that particular business model, that particular budget, and what have you, then you can find the right answer. So our MoPro is about training ourselves and then building up. We're increasingly using it within the Gen AI frameworks and Gen AI tooling that we're building internally to how to build the product. So that do I use SendGrid as my email provider? Do I use Mailgun? Do I use some simple email service from Amazon SES? Those kind of decisions. It's just one example of, okay, there's many, many different ways to cut this. What is the right way at this point in time? And so it's a framework around building that.
One of my favorite parts of the framework is around, when you're starting out, when you're a small business, you don't have a lot of data in order to base your kind of product decisions on. And so we help train, how do you have that gut feel for what the right thing is for the user when you don't have huge swaths of evidence from massive A/B testing that you've done on a product. And I think that's a really important thing of how you get started.
Yeah, it's very much that. Product thinking will always tell you, use the data, talk to the users. And you're like, we haven't got any.
Data all users.
Yeah. So, how can you make the best decisions in a data scarce environment? Well, the way you make the best decisions generally is based on your experience and your instinct and your gut feel. But that isn't a binary thing where, somebody has great instincts and somebody doesn't. Like anything, we believe that you should be able to train for it. And therefore, how do you train for it? Well, gut feel around what the right thing is to build is quite an amorphous, difficult to define thing. But if you put various different structures around it and frameworks around it, you can break it down into manageable portions. And then by doing that, you can train for it.
Right. So it's almost like simplifying market research. Or
no. It is being able to talk to somebody who's talking about their vision of their product and the customers it's going to solve for.
Right.
And then translating that into something very tangible and buildable for that particular point in time. So back to the doctor-patient analogy. So imagine you came to see me and you said, I've got this illness and what have you. I've got aches and pains here and I've got something here. I've got a rash here. That could be many different things.
Right.
But by breaking it down and doing a diagnosis of the situation, then you get a way of treating it. Now, one way to treat it might be to chop your arm off.
Right.
Another way to treat it might be to take some pills. Another way to treat it might just to have bed rest. Those are three very different approaches to treating that problem. But if you don't have the understanding and the training, who knows which one's the right one or not? And so what we're trying to train is that understanding of take a problem and then break it down and make it tangible in the right way.
Right. Yeah. So the next thing I would ask is, apart from the obvious ChatGPT and Gemini, what other tools do you think that people are like overlooking that they could be using on a daily basis, personal and business?
So I guess more and more products people are already using and already have subscriptions to are introducing AI features. Like Notion has a really great AI feature that I know is going down really well. Some of the big like workspace providers like Microsoft and Google have obviously released co-pilots within their own suites. And then apart from that, like trying out a few different large language models is always good. Having something that you're used to using as your companion to be able to bounce ideas against, or use in a generated way, it's good. If you're working in software development, Cursor and Windsurf are like amazing integrated development environments that are out there that will help write code for you as you go along. If you're in the design space, Adobe Express has Firefly, which is their AI built into it. Fantastic for image generation or content generation. Midjourney is great for just generating images, although the ChatGPT GPT-4o image generation is really impressive now. They've kind of got over that hurdle of text generation now, which was such a blocker for so many things we were trying to do. What else am I missing?
I mean, within different specialist sectors, there's AIs that are very specific. So within legal or within product development, there are sometimes just GPT wrappers, so then the underlying models can be the ones that anyway, but they are building in the frameworks and the structures like the prompts, because we haven't talked about prompts, but like getting your prompts right and the prompting and how you set up the prompts is so important, because the same model can give you wildly different answers from different prompts. It can give you different answers from the same prompt, never mind from how well you give the prompt. So things that help you structure and construct the prompts in better ways are really good tools as well.
And so say if I was to search something on Gemini compared to ChatGPT, whatever the other ones are, how does the information vary?
They're trained on different data sets. They've got different ways that the underlying model architecture is set up. So you can get very different results. Like in general, if you're working more in the technical space, like Claude is really good for that. Whereas ChatGPT, I think, is still like an overall fantastic, like general purpose LLM to use. Some of the new Gemini models are very fast and also at a really good price point. Mistral are still doing some great stuff in France. Like, I think it's really encouraging to me that there are so many different big players all competing at such a high level. Like, I think it would have been a much scarier world if like only OpenAI had got to this point of getting a good general purpose model.
Yeah. And what was the one that was released in China?
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek.
So DeepSeek's fascinating because they were able to train such a high quality model with all the restrictions around the hardware they had. They don't have access to the latest and greatest chips. So they really focused on efficiency. I guess what also sets it apart is the fact that it's open source. So you can go and look at the model weights, you can go and see how the model is constructed. And I think,
just on that. So like, I remember there was a big shake-up in the market, like when DeepSeek was released. What was the threat of that?
Because the feeling was, if you can now train such a high quality model for only $5 million rather than $50, $100 million, like that really reduced the barrier to entry for potential corporations to build their own very high quality models. Now, there's still a lot of controversy around whether they they copied the homework of OpenAI in terms of using that as a source training model. So the jury's still out on that, but I think it's again the kind of balance between the open source world. So many more of the kind of models coming out of China are open source versus the US model of kind of proprietary corporate models, and seeing how those two things play out is going to be really interesting in the next few years.
Yeah, and so when you're asking these models questions, is it retaining that information for the next person who asks the same question, or is that?
So, speaking for ChatGPT specifically at the moment, as I said, there are privacy settings that say that you won't train on my data when you're asking questions. Also, if you use the API, they don't train on that data. And they've recently included this kind of concept of memory, which means that it can store key facts about you and use those in future conversations. They have the concept of projects, which allow you to share information between different unique chats. And one of the announcements that actually kind of went under the radar for me was the fact that now they're using full cross-chat support within your own user profile in order to inform the conversations you're having. But none of this should be bleeding between different users, at least according to the T's and C's. So
that's not how it learns. So if I ask, make me a marketing plan, the next person who asks for the same question with the same kind of prompts, they would not get that same kind of.
If you have your privacy mode turned on, then they shouldn't be training on that data, and therefore that shouldn't influence.
So how does it train on the data? In a short form,
So much of the training data was harvested from the open web. There's huge scrapers out there that are constantly fetching data that is published onto the open web in order to help train the underlying model.
Okay. So it never learns from, obviously for your personal chat, it's got a memory I don't have to tell them about a certain project that I'm working on. They'll know when I say post about that project that I had a conversation about last week with it. But most of the information is only on the web.
Yeah, that's not going into updating the underlying model weights that are behind the core model.
But you can choose to choose to share that information with it.
You can turn off your privacy settings, and therefore they can train on your data. As you ask questions, they can use that conversation back and forth in order to improve the model for everybody. And that's where you've got to be careful with the information you're putting in if you don't have those privacy settings enabled.
But I think that's not new, isn't it? So if I was to go on a social network and I wanted to share everything about my business and I had my privacy settings set to everybody can see everything, then people out there were going to harvest that, scrape that information and then either use it to target or what have you. Or I could narrow my settings down to a limited group of people, or I could make the settings completely private. Every time I enter information into a form on a website, I'm ultimately passing my data to another provider. And then I need to tell that provider what I want it to do with that data. And if I don't tell that provider that it's private, or that provider for some reason assumes that it's reasonable that it can be not private, and they will use it. So I don't think this is a new thing. It's often being touted as this new threat, but it's the same threat as it was 10 years ago when people were posting pictures of their kids on Facebook.
Yeah. And these models, how does one, so the information it gives you and stores, how does one have more than the other, if that makes sense? So or is it each model can access the same information, or do certain models have access to information that other models may not?
So each of those models was trained on the data set that model provider decided to use. So as I said, they scraped some information off the internet, they probably purchased some information, and then there's also a period of cleansing where they decide what's that information to throw away, what to change, and that's why the underlying source data can look different. And there's also this now blending of search data, other API data in order to enhance the results that you get. And tools like Perplexity, for example, it is designed as very much that multimodal ability to search for information, get information live from the web, get information from the large language model, and that actually blends together a whole series of different large language models behind the scenes for you as well to try and give you the best overall response.
And there are more and more tools and processes coming out, MCPs and model context protocols, servers where they pull in information in real time from multiple sources through APIs to provide additional context to the LLM as it's carrying out the calculation of what's the most likely next word to come through.
Right.
But back to that question about where does the data come from? Like again, it isn't a new problem. Like Google has been the best at it because it had the best scrapers and the best algorithms about what to present versus other competitors in the search space that didn't have as much things and much up-to-date information. So this idea of public information being scraped and used to help train a way of providing a service to a user is old as the internet is old.
And what would you say the next milestone is for AI? Now it's been around for quite a bit now. What is the next thing that you think would be the big innovation point?
So I think like 2022 was the year of the large language model launch, right? Like ChatGPT launch, we all went ballistic over what it could do. It was a whole new way of interacting with a machine. The year after that, I think RAG, retrieval augmented generation, was the big topic in AI. And that's where you're injecting dynamic information at the point of asking the question. So you ask the large language model a question, it goes and fetches some relevant information from a database or a website or something else, and then gives you the response back. I think this year is now the year of the agent. So an agent is where the large language model has the ability to do some actions. So you give it some tools it can use. So maybe it's I want to draft an email, and it has the ability to actually generate that email for you and open it up in your email provider and then let you click send. So you're giving it some autonomy there in order to actually draft that email. And so this is the year where people are trying to work out how do we start to give the AI more control and more ability to do actions on behalf of humans, obviously keeping us in control.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to see this year. And I suspect next year we're going to start seeing where those agents are coming together and teams of agents are going to work together on things. And technologies like A2A from Google are there to help define how these agents are going to talk to each other. Right. So you have two AIs trying to work together on a problem and speaking to each other. And that's where observability is really important. We need as humans to keep an eye on what these conversations are. If we see them suddenly switch into a language that we don't speak, that's the point where we need to switch it off, because we need to maintain that visibility.
Yeah. So we're at a point where AI can generate stuff for us, but they can't actually take action.
We're starting to give it some actions now through this agent model.
Okay.
And again, there's some really good research talking about the different levels of control that you might give it access to.
All right. And is that similar to a voice assistant? So
yeah, I think that's a really great way to think about it. Yeah, and I think Siri's been a really interesting example of something that hasn't managed to keep up with the big AI changes, despite being at such a good starting point of having that kind of agentic control.
Yeah. I think Apple were always too worried about how people might try and hack into it and cause it to do things, and the reputational damage. But Apple, is famously behind the curve now on AI when it comes to things. But as Nick was saying, if you think about how voice activated works, it is receiving information via your voice, processing that in what was an old AI kind of way, analog AI, and then carrying out an action, which was then phoning your mum or whatever. Yeah. And so agentic, is that it's actually carrying out an action based on the output that it generated for you. I can see things like booking travel, give it a load of context and a lot of information, and it says all these things. This is the itinerary. Then you say, "Yeah, that sounds great. Do you want to go and book it? Yeah, go and book it." And then it goes and books it for you as well, and then puts it all in your calendar and everything.
And what's the barrier for that? Because if you do it with a voice assistant, where you're doing voice commands, why can't you type it and it does the same thing basically?
So I guess partly is around that validation to make sure that it's going to work correctly every time, or as much to every time as possible. I think partly it's around the different providers of services creating those interfaces for the large language models to interact with, and that's where the MCP servers come into play. I think it's one of the big barriers.
Yeah. I mean, I think coming back to what generative AI is versus old AI is that, if I had a series of algorithms that generated an output, I know that I'm going to get that same output every time. Whereas if I am using generative AI that's predicting what the next likely thing is, then I'm not guaranteed to get the same output every time. So, if you're then giving it agency to go and act on your behalf, you need to be sure that what you put in the top is what you're going to get out at the bottom, and it doesn't end up over here and booking you, 3 weeks in Aruba when you wanted to go a weekend in the Cotswolds.
Yeah. This is the double-edged sword of AI, of Gen AI, right? Like, it's really good at the fuzziness of natural language and interpreting, many different ways of asking for the same thing. But that fuzziness is then on the other side of things, means that it can be unpredictable and there's a risk on how it outputs.
Yeah, and it comes back to, like you mentioned, it's the user is in control. That's the big focus. We can't kind of let it take over in a sense, and it's always going to be the user giving prompts.
But that's where agentic is actually moving beyond that, because that agentic AI, the intention is that the user steps back rather than having to give a prompt and then update, give a prompt update. It is you give solid context, probably another prompt, and then based on that, it can do 3 or 4 steps on its own, and that's the challenge.
And is there any? You mentioned agents. Is there any of that currently available?
Oh yeah, they're being released all the time behind the scenes, and particularly in software development, where projects like Devon, which are trying to create autonomous software developers essentially that are there who can take requirements and actually write code, in the background that a human then reviews and pushes into the code base.
Yeah. And on that, it's like, especially with coding now, what a coder could do before, what they would be paid to do compared to now with AI. Is it the same, or?
It's been a big accelerator for us, and like things that would be kind of those boring jobs we were talking about earlier, like writing large tests or doing like large refactors or doing like package updates. Like now AI can help us do those things so much more quickly and so much more accurately than a human can do. So for us, it's really kind of pairing up humans with AI in order to then develop things faster. And it's a really fun way of working as well. Like, it allows you to be more creative, think more about the product and the kind of holistic output and less about the specific lines of code that you're writing. Yeah.
And I think like it's the user defines what they want, the requirements. But yeah, like, so say,
I think like human taste is a very fickle thing, and it's a very difficult thing to kind of understand and to monitor and change as it goes through. And I think that's what AIs are not very good at the moment. And so, I think humans still being in the driving seat to be able to understand what we're trying to solve for and then provide to the AI the goals to then go and achieve.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's overlooked is we, like someone like us would assume that everyone knows what AI is. Everyone knows about ChatGPT. But if you went out and spoke to random people on the street, they might not have any clue about these, ChatGPTs or whatever it is. But that kind of shows you that it's not quite there yet where people are saying AI is taking over, because there's a lot of people out there that just have no idea. Yeah. And they're getting on with their lives.
I think at least though that this technology has been made publicly available. Like this could have been something that was developed, at the military level and then through commercial and then to the public. Whereas actually, ChatGPT was available for anybody in 2022. But yes, you're right. There's a huge amount of education we still need to do. People still need to understand how to use it and how it's going to kind of impact their lives. Because I think it is like when rather than if. Like the cat's out of the bag. This technology is moving very, very quickly. And I think it is going to, if you're a knowledge worker, it is going to be able to benefit you right now and will continue to benefit us in the future.
Okay, so I think we're coming up to time on the podcast. So I tend to finish off with some quick fire questions. So the first one is usually, what's your favorite part of running a business? But in this case, I would say, what is your favorite part of working at Mohara and working with clients and startups?
My favorite part is when you get somebody come in and they've got this sort of big vision, but they've just got no idea how to make it real, and you make it real for them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking of. I can't believe I'm finally here. I've had this kind of dream for such a long time, and now I'm actually able to go and start my own business and build something of mine." And we translated that great big thing into this is how we're going to do it. I think that's like a really big thing.
Kind of similar, like founders are so passionate about what they're trying to build, and that's really infectious. And so being able to be part of all these different founder journeys and helping bring their products to life is really cool.
And do you ever get some pushback when you propose your, you know?
You get pushback in any, like, we are fundamentally in a service business, and a service business means you sell from one human to another human, and there's always going to be in that some difference of opinion about, you know, what is the right way to be doing it. And I think that sort of segues into my other favourite part about the business is being able to serve lots of different kinds of people and manage their expectations and manage the delivery and make sure that we're always trying to drive towards happy customers. And if you get a difficult situation and you have a really good empathy for why it's a difficult situation and why the feeling is like that, and then you're able to like unpick it and then work your way through to a resolution, it's a really good kind of...
It's like a balance of emotional and data-driven kind of goals, right?
Well, I mean, the data-driven is around, what have we done before? What's our experience? But like I say, ultimately, the customers are people, and they've got their stresses and hopes and fears around things, and like knowing to talk about and emphasize the right area and knowing what their problem is going to be, so that you go into the meetings and you're like, taking the bullets out of the gun of the kind of threats or stresses they've got, so that they're like, I thought it was going to be a really hard conversation, but actually it was fine, really good.
Yeah. And the other part for me, I think, is the technology. Like, we get to use all this exciting, interesting technology to solve these problems. And, it's like having this huge Lego kit of stuff to build. And, we're building innovative products. So there's no instruction kit on how to build it. We have to work out what are the right things to pull together in order to solve that particular challenge.
Yeah. And the next one is, where do you see Mohara in 5 years?
Well, we want to be like significant in the industry we're working. We want, there are people like Y Combinator in the US that are the real kind of market leaders and well known. And we want people to go, hey, you want to build some innovative product? You got to go speak to the Mohara guys. They're the guys that can really get you going. If you're like I say, early stage, or if you're looking to build something innovative, like, they're the guys that know how to get that done, and they really understand what it's like being in the state that you're in. And
I was reading up that you're branching out into the US. Is that an ongoing thing? Or
yeah. So about 45% of our revenue comes from US-based customers these days, and the longer term goal is to get that maybe 65%. And just one of the main reasons is that there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more kind of areas where people are innovating, and like some of the sort of ideas and the technologies and things are really at the leading edge.
Oh. And then the last one, best piece of advice you ever received. So we can start.
Oh, wow.
Nick?
We should say that before.
Yeah.
Business related, generic?
Trust your gut. Like, as a leader, there are so many situations where you don't have all the information and you have to make a decision, because not making a decision is making a decision. And so that confidence, and this came from a consultant I used to work with at my previous company. He was like, you've got a good gut, trust it. And I think I've tried to take that forward.
I think it is that one about the decisions and decision making. It's like, get really good at making decisions and knowing what kinds of decisions they are. Jeff Bezos always had a sort of decision-making framework, but it's like people treat decisions, I've been out to lunch with people who can't make a decision about what salad to buy for lunch. I'm like, that's not the thing to be stressing over. Like, figure out, is it easily reversible? Do you need more information? Is it something that you can make and everyone else can not agree with, but then commit to it? Because the more that you can make decisions, the more you can move things forward in your business.
Oh. Okay, that's a final question.
Great.
That's the end of the podcast. Thanks for coming down.
No worries.
I've learned a lot. I'm pretty sure the viewers will too.
Great.
And thank you.
Well, thank you for having us. Cheers.